Good morning, everyone, and good morning, Rodney.
Good morning. How you doing there?
I'm doing great. We are so glad you've all joined us on the This Way Network for the chat session lineup. This
Yeah.
morning, Rodney and I are going to be covering odds and ends. I just found so many interesting stories in the
Yeah.
news cycle recently, and I thought, I bet a lot of these have just kind of slipped right by most of us, and it would be fun to feature some of these.
Interesting.
So, anyway, I just thought maybe if you hadn't heard of them, Rodney, you might be interested in these too.
Interesting.
So the first story I found, and I think it's because I found these first two stories
hmm
literally right next to each other on a
hmm
news website, and I thought it was kind
hmm
of interesting that they were juxtaposed to each
hmm
other. The first one is New Zealand's Mount Taranaki is
Okay.
now legally a person.
The mountain is a person.
The mountain is a person. It says it is now legally recognized as a person after being granted all the rights and responsibilities of a human by the government.
Why?
I had that question too. It says the new law offers extra protection for Mount Taranaki and means it has all the rights, powers, duties, and responsibilities of a person. It's part of an agreement between New Zealand's government and the
hmm
indigenous Maori tribes, which have long considered the 8,261-foot mountain an ancestor.
Wow. It's funny because it's not funny, but a colleague of mine, her name's Catherine Bachnight, which we had her on. Catherine had done. She's actually produced a documentary, and it was something the sovereignty of Hawaii. And basically in Hawaii, over time, they've been developing. Well, truthfully, and it's not just that particular story, it's happened all across the nation and around the world that they have built on burial grounds that these
Mm-hmm.
people were very, very connected to the ground or the water and different things. And when development encroached in these areas, they're like, hey, we used to, that was a relative of ours over there, or they built on sacred grounds. And that really causes a huge thing. So that's very interesting that they bestowed that thing on that
Mm-hmm.
mountain.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know,
I just
in,
thought it was a really interesting headline, though,
hmm
especially for people who don't know the history, aren't a
hmm
part of that whole debate there in New Zealand. And all you read is the mountain is now legally a person. And like you, I was
hmm
thinking, why? And then what does that mean in the first paragraph when it was saying it has all the rights,
nice.
duties, and responsibilities of a person? And
There,
of course, my thought then was
yeah.
responsibilities. Does that mean if there's an avalanche, the mountain's going to clean it up? That was, my first thought. I was kind of going there in black and white.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But
Or the
I mean, it
people,
makes more
or wait a
sense when
minute,
you
or
read the
the
context.
people. Wait, you know, okay, I can kind of see some of these things but it's not a mandated thing. But if sometimes, like if a person can't take care of themselves, maybe someone next to kin can take care of them. So you're talking about an avalanche
Hmm.
or something like that. That's pretty
Hmm.
interesting. And wow, oh, and we hadn't said hello to everybody. So good morning, Carrie,
Yeah.
AC Cruz. Good morning, everybody. And
Elvira, yeah, we're so glad you're all here.
yeah, yeah.
And, I tend to think you're right, Carrie. It probably was safer as a mountain in some ways. Although there was the Maori tribes, I think, were talking about the fact that
Mhm,
they felt like the government hadn't been taking good care of the mountain.
mhm.
So, anyway, maybe that's why that happened. And we'll see if anything comes out of that in the future. But right after that story on the same website was literally this headline:
Mhm.
Elephants can't pursue release because they're not people. Court rules.
Okay.
So there was an
Wow.
animal rights group that sued. It
Mhm.
said a court has ruled that 5 elephants being held in a Colorado zoo do not have the legal right to
Oh, okay.
pursue their release because they are not human. An animal rights group brought
Okay.
a lawsuit on behalf of the elephants from Cheyenne Mountain Zoo in Colorado Springs using a legal process known as habeas corpus. A writ of habeas corpus, Latin for you may have the body, is a legal maneuver which requires a court to examine the legality of a detention. The Non Human Rights Project, which took the case to court, had argued the elephants born in the wild in Africa have shown signs of brain damage because the zoo is essentially a prison
Right.
for
Oh, yeah.
such intelligent social creatures known to roam for miles a day. Their hope was the court would rule in their favor and pave the way for the mammals to be sent to an elephant sanctuary
Right.
instead. But
Hmm.
the zoo said moving the elephants and potentially placing them with new animals would be
Hmm.
cruel at their age, possibly
Yeah.
causing unnecessary stress. It added they are not used to being in larger herds, and based on the zoo's observations, the elephants don't have the skills or desire to join one. The court concluded the majestic animals were not covered by the laws the rights group was pointing to. The legal question here boils down to whether an elephant is a person, the court said in its ruling, and because an elephant is not a person, the elephants here do not have standing to bring a habeas corpus claim.
Wow. You know what?
So
Okay. I'm going to jump in on your your wonderful topic. Okay. Well, I did a little research here as we were sitting here thinking, and you would not believe there are a lot of weird laws out there. Like case in point,
mhm,
in Alabama, there is a
mhm.
law still on the
I
books.
knew you were going to pick on us, but we do have plenty. Go ahead.
Well, in Alabama, putting salt on a railroad track could be punishable by death. And it is says that at
Wow.
first glance, there are weird laws that are completely out of left field, but a little insight, things make a lot more sense, and they're a little bit less weird. But apparently, salt could apparently attract cattle to railroads, and on the
Oh.
trains, it potentially, when trains are passing, cause a big problem. So
Mhm.
apparently, in Alabama, you don't want to put salt on a railroad track. Here's another one. In Alaska, it is against the law and illegal to wake up a sleeping bear to take a picture of it. So if you see a sleeping bear, do not take a picture of it, because if they find out you posted it, you could go to jail.
No,
And
wait a minute. I'm sorry. So, and
hey,
I get the wisdom of this in a sense because I'm like, you're
mhm,
kind of stupid if you wake up a sleeping bear just so you can get a picture with it. That's really kind of dumb and will cost you your life and then a lot of trauma to the people who have to come and,
right,
So
right.
I get that.
Mhm.
But
Eh,
um but if the law is that you cannot wake up a sleeping bear to
mhm.
take a picture, then when you do take a picture and the bear is sleeping, you haven't broken the law, right?
Right. I guess not. But these are those little things that you have to kind of get down into the minute areas of the
Mhm.
of the reasoning behind it. And there are people who actually sue on these claims. And do you know, in Arkansas, it is illegal to honk your horn at a sandwich shop after 9 p.m. It's illegal.
Why
So
just a sandwich shop?
don't know. Hey, you started this. You want to talk about odd things? Okay.
Hey, Carrie's given us a few too. In Florida, you can't skydive naked.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. That makes
And
sense.
there's a law about that because somebody did, and
Right.
it didn't go well.
I'm
So they felt
probably
like they had to make a law about it.
that
Here's
makes
another one
good
she gave
sense.
us, no pies on the windowsill. Carrie, where is that? Where is it you can't put pies on the windowsill? And now I have to say, I have to tell you this story because she even brought up the phrase
Mhm.
pies on the windowsill. I actually heard a preacher tell this story when I was in my teens. And he
Mm-hmm.
said it was a real story that had happened to him.
Okay.
So he said he used to be an evangelist who would go around to different churches that invited him,
Okay.
and he would preach revival services, right? And these were rural churches, most of them. They
Right.
didn't have a lot of money, and of course the preacher didn't have a lot of money either. So they would put the preacher up while he was there for the week of revival services in different people's homes.
Right.
And so each night he would go to somebody else's home. They would serve him dinner. They would put him up for the night. And then, he'd go back to the church the next day, preach again, and then he would go home with somebody else. So he said there was one time where they had this great service. As soon as it was over, he was introduced to this family who was supposed to take him home. And
Mm-hmm.
they took him home, and he said they lived in just a little old cabin up on the mountain.
Right.
And he said as soon as he came in, he realized there was only one light in the whole room. It was a bare light bulb hanging from the ceiling
Right.
right over the dinner table. And he said, and you didn't eat before you went to the service because he's preaching and, didn't want to be belching or anything like
Okay.
that. So they had prepared dinner for him for when he got back. And he said the table was all set, and he smelled some good things coming from the oven and so forth that they had, waiting for him. And he
Mm-hmm.
said he looked over, it was summer, so they had their windows open, and he looked over, and on the window he saw his favorite dessert,
Okay.
blueberry pie.
Okay. Good.
And he thought, oh my goodness, blueberry pie, I'm gonna have to save room for that. So he told the hostess,
Mm-hmm.
I see you made my favorite dessert over there. I'm
Okay.
gonna save room for that. I want a big slice of that at the
Okay.
end of the meal. And she said, that's your favorite dessert? And he said, yes. How did you know that that
Mm-hmm.
was my favorite dessert? And she said, well, Pastor, I didn't know you liked apple pies. And she waved her hand over the pie, and all these flies got up and flew away.
Gracious. Oh no. Oh no.
Do
Yeah,
you
that's
think he
pretty
ate
rough.
it?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, that's a pretty yikes. Yeah, that's pretty rough. Yeah, I think I would have had to skip on the pie. Well, okay, we have another one that I think you will love. And hey,
Yeah, I
big
want to
shout out.
hear it.
This is something that shout out to all the Elon Musk fans and Tesla. Big shout out, gave them a shameless plug. But in California, it is no vehicle without drivers are may go over 60 miles an hour on the highway. So it's a law against it apparently. So they don't want driverless cars going over 60.
Hmm.
So that is a problem. Colorado, it is illegal to lend your vacuum cleaner to your next door neighbor.
What?
Interesting.
What?
In
Now you have to wonder how that one came about.
don't know. In Connecticut, it is illegal to educate your dog. They don't want you. So, and
So
it's
no dog training? I mean, you can't train them to sit or
apparently not.
stay
Apparently
or
not. There's somewhere in
gosh.
Colorado, somewhere there's a law in the books. Here's another one. Delaware, it is illegal for a pawn shop to accept someone's wheelchair or prosthetic limb as payment. So you
Oh.
can't, that's another form of giving someone an arm and a leg. Get it? So
Yes.
it's
Oh my
it's
goodness.
really crazy. In Florida, back to the elephants. If you tie an elephant up at a parking post, you are required to pay a fee as you would a car. So apparently there's some law on the books from way, way back. If you have a pet elephant and it's cruising through town and you tie it up at a parking post, you got to pay the fee just like you're paying a car.
Now, you know what my guess is that how that came about is the
Mm-hmm.
circus came to town, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I was young, at least when the circus came to town, they would
Mhm.
have a big parade through town from the train station to wherever they were going to hold, put up the tents and have the circus. And so you got to see the elephants go by. This was
Right,
kind of
right,
like free advertising for the
right.
circus too. Everybody
Mhm.
would come and stare and gawk.
Barnum and
So I'm
Bailey.
kind of
Barnum and
thinking
Bailey.
at some point, yeah, there
Yep,
you go. Kind of thinking at some point that somebody tied up an elephant at a parking space and
and
then tried
somebody
to claim, oh, well, I don't have to pay the parking, for that space because it's not a
mhm.
car. And so they had to make a law and say, well, yeah, if you're taking up the space, you got to pay the fee.
That's right.
So that's pretty interesting.
Okay, for all you ice cream lovers out there, in Georgia, it is illegal to keep an ice cream cone in your back pocket on Sunday. Remember that, folks.
Oh, but
Don't
you can do it on Monday and Tuesday.
Monday through Saturday, you can walk around with an ice cream cone in your back pocket, but just not on Sunday. Just thought I'd tell you that.
I'm speechless for that one. You get that picture. The law
Mhm.
happened because someone did it, but why?
Maybe it was
Why
dripping
would
on the
someone do
floor.
that?
Maybe it was dripping and making a mess. And who would walk around with an ice cream cone in their back pocket?
And
Don't know.
why?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's just
pretty.
really bizarre.
Mhm.
But
Well,
that's very
In
interesting.
Hawaii, it is illegal to have more than one alcoholic drink in front of you at a time. So you can't do double fisted in you can't be double fisted in Hawaii. So you can't have individually, you can only have one drink at a time. So you're not supposed to
Hmm.
have two drinks on the table at a time in front of you personally.
So those things that we see sometimes in the movies where the guy lines up these shots of whiskey or something and he starts, you can't do that there.
Nope, 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 nope. But I
That's
guess think
pretty
about it.
interesting.
They're trying to curb bad behavior because, sometimes people have a little bit too
Mhm.
much alcohol, and so they try to slow that down a little bit. So could
Well,
be
it's
some
one way to
moderation.
curb, you know but, I'm sitting here thinking if you're at a restaurant, you and your, partner, you're sitting across the table from each other, you've both
Mhm.
ordered an alcoholic beverage, then your partner gets up to go to the restroom, and you're
Right.
stuck with 2 drinks sitting in front of you at the table. Have you broken the law?
I
I
well,
don't
I
know.
guess you better keep the other glass on the other side,
I
and,
guess so, or well, it's not in front of me. Yeah, I
you
don't know.
want I
That's
don't know
pretty
where this one
interesting.
came from. In Idaho, it is illegal to fish from a camel's back. So you cannot sit on a camel and fish
In Idaho.
in Idaho. And what in the world is a camel doing in Idaho?
In
And why?
Idaho.
See,
Yeah.
honestly, well, no kidding aside, there are certain things that I really think maybe it's just funny for them to keep it on the books, but why would they have such things on the books? I mean, think about it. I mean, why would they? I mean, at some logical point, they should go and say, this doesn't make any sense because there's probably money and all kind of stuff that's tied to that strange little law. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
I'm sure. And I think they call a lot of those blue laws. I don't know why it's called that, but
Mhm.
it kinda means when you hear it's a blue law, it means, "Oh, well, it's not pertinent anymore, so, they're not going to enforce it because it's
Right.
not pertinent." But it's not off the books. And I know in
Right.
Alabama,
Mhm.
I don't know about local laws, and I'm suspecting this is probably true with local governments as well,
Mhm.
that the what it requires to actually take it off the book is such an elaborate process that
Right.
no one wants to put the energy into it when you can just say, yeah, we're just not going to enforce that.
Mhm.
So that's my guess. I don't know.
Mhm.
Oh, wow. During communism, it was illegal to buy vodka from 1 a.m. in Poland.
Interesting.
Okay. Because you couldn't get it in,
I guess they just have a time.
I
They
don't
have a
know.
cutoff. They have a but that's like that's in the United States too. They stop. They cut alcohol off And there are different places, Las Vegas and different things like that, because it's just kind of flowing and going crazy all night, especially in Vegas. But there's certain cities that have these laws. It was interesting. I remember when I moved to North Carolina, when you're in California, they have liquor stores here. It is liquor.
Mm-hmm.
And it says on the thing, liquor stores. But when we moved to North Carolina, my dad had a cold, and my dad, he had sent me to the store to get him, because he makes a hot toddy, especially if you had a cold, you might get a little rum, and he would get something called like rock candy. It's like white. It's like a bag of, and he would put some rock candy in a jar and pour a little whiskey in it and put honey and lemon and make this concoction. And so if trust me, if you ever have a cold, trust me, make a hot tea, pour a little bit of toddy in there. Great for knocking a cold out. But anyway, my dad he goes, hey, go to the liquor store. So I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I'm riding around looking for a liquor store. There's not one. In North Carolina, they call them ABC stores, which is the Alcohol Beverage Commission. So finally, I end up finding the ABC store, and in North Carolina, that's where all the liquor is. If you go to a supermarket, you can buy beer, you can't buy alcohol. So it's the strangest thing but that's their way of really controlling the liquor tax. And I said, wow, I couldn't believe that. So if you go to North Carolina and you decide to stop at a liquor store, you won't find one. You got to go to the ABC store.
That's true in Alabama too. Yeah, that's what we have here. That's very interesting. Very interesting. And I'm wondering, Elmar, I was just thinking about what you just posted about it was legal to buy vodka from 1 a.m. It kind of implies, if you're in a bar or pub in Poland and it becomes midnight, a new day has started, you have to wait a whole hour before you can order any vodka. And then at 1 a.m., you can start drinking again. You can drink the rest of the day until midnight. And then it's like they're saying, no, we have to have some limits here.
Okay. Well, for all you pet lovers out there in Illinois, it is illegal to have a smelly dog. So make sure you go and shampoo your pooches, or you might get a ticket.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they've got some fantastic. You started this. You said odd little things, but that's it.
That's really odd. In Alaska, oh gosh, Carrie says in Alaska you can't feed a moose alcoholic beverages.
Yeah.
Why would you want to? Yeah.
Yeah, people do strange things.
They do.
And
they do.
In Indiana, baths are illegal between the months of October and March. It is illegal to have a bath.
What?
Hey, it's on the books.
Now read that again to me. Okay.
It says baths are illegal between the months of October and March. I think we consider ourselves lucky that this law isn't enforced, but you can imagine the country might be how the country might smell, but there are weird laws. And so if you think we're kidding, folks, you can just go to weird laws in Indiana. If you research that,
go look them up.
Oh,
so that was, which state was that one in, Robbie?
That was in Indiana. Oh, here's another one. This it would create a big problem. In Iowa, a one-arm piano player must perform for free. A one-arm piano player in Iowa must play for free. He can't get paid for your piano playing,
no matter how good you are.
And can you imagine? I'm sure that there are some amazing one-arm piano players.
That again, the law was made because it happened somewhere. It kind of suggests to me, excuse me, that there was some fella who had one arm, but he could tear that piano up with playing. And then he was charging for shows. And, I'm sure a lot of people thought, wow, what a spectacle to be able to see this one-armed piano player be able to tear up the piano like that. And so, but then somebody was like, no, I didn't get my money's worth because he wasn't playing with two hands, and that's what we expected, or something like that. So it's like, so they try to put him out of business by.
I would I would be very, very sad because in Kansas,
Mhm.
this is for my good old buddy Mike Owens and Mark Owens. I love you guys. Both of them passed away a few years back, but in Kansas, and oh, for you Kansas City Chiefs people, sorry about that, Kansas. That was pretty rough last night.
Yeah.
Whew, that was pretty rough. In Kansas, it is illegal to eat clam chowder on Sunday between 11:50 a.m. and 12:48 p.m. No clam chowder for you in Kansas, apparently, especially on Sunday.
Between just those hours.
That's what it
That's a
says.
really specific law. You have to
Mhm.
wonder how that happened. Honest to goodness, it does sound like that there are times when laws were made specifically aiming to hurt particular people.
Well, okay. Well,
Yeah.
this might not be so bad. In Kentucky, all Kentucky residents are required to shower at least once per year. You got to shower at least one time per year,
Whether you need it or not.
whether you need it or not. Remember that.
I now have to wonder if my dad knew about that law. He used to tell me all the time when,
Mhm.
I'd hug him and I'd say, "Oh, Dad, you smell so nice." And he'd say, "Natural odor. I took a bath once a year, whether I need it or not."
That's right. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a big joker.
My my oldest brother's funny comments. My brother would say, I'm gonna go brush my teeth. No need to walk around with your breath smelling like train smoke." And I would say, and he would say train smoke because trains apparently had sulfur in them and they would really stink when they went by. And
Mhm.
so, man, I remember all these funny anecdotes my oldest brother used to say. He said breath smell like train smoke. Anyway, um, yeah,
That's
sometimes
pretty interesting.
it's a pretty bad deal. Um, wow. Gee whiz. In Louisiana, you must buy a special license in order to legally sport a goatee in Louisiana. So everybody walking around with a goatee in Louisiana, some folks are breaking the law. So somebody
So
like
just, that
some
also implies too, if it's being regulated with a license, kind of implies that there's somebody in the license department that has the power to say, nope, you're not wearing
Mhm.
one. Wonder if there was
Mhm.
some jealousy going on there. Oh, I don't like the way these women are falling for all these guys with goatees. Or maybe they just didn't like the look of it, and talk about
Mhm.
overregulation. Wow,
So what
that's
else you
crazy.
got? You got anything cool? What else
I
you got?
do. I found this story, which I thought was really uh, surprising, really
Okay.
surprising. So I'm just going to start reading it to you. I'm not going to tell you the headline first.
Okay.
A 19th century time traveling book series. So, in other words, it's a book series about time travel that was written in the 19th century. So, that's the
Ooh.
1800s. Okay.
Okay.
By an oddball American author that centers around a protagonist named Baron Trump,
Okay.
has taken TikTok by storm, with social media users wildly theorizing the writings foretold President Trump's rise to the White House.
Wow.
Anyone who owns copies of Ingersoll Lockwood's Baron Trump novels is dusting off their largely forgotten collection to scour for any missed clues that could indicate where America might be going next. One novel in the series, titled The Last President, has
Ooh.
fueled conspiracy theories that Donald Trump may have been foreseen as a pivotal political figure in history during the late 1800s. In the book, a heated election causes unrest in New York City and sparks protests on Fifth Avenue. The fictional president,
Mhm.
Brian, decides to appoint a cabinet member named Pence,
Wow.
similar to Donald Trump's vice president during his first term, Mike Pence. And the protagonist, Baron Trump, who bears the same name, though spelled differently, as Donald Trump's youngest son, is described as being curious, arrogant, and destined for greatness.
Wow.
It says the seemingly Simpsons level predictions have left TikTok users in a frenzy. The theories on the social media platform delve into every accessible crevasse of the real Trump's family history. Some link the novels to Donald Trump's late uncle, John G. Trump, who analyzed Nikola Tesla's papers regarding energy and time. This connection has led some to wildly speculate that the Trump family gained knowledge of time travel through studies tied to Tesla and his supposed secret time travel experiments. Skepticism is still at the forefront of the whirlwind of theories, though. Many argue that the books are coincidental works of fiction reflecting on the era they were published during. Others find that the theorizers are grasping at inconceivable straws born out of an obsession with the Trump family. That's the end of the article.
Wow. That's very, very strange. Well, I mean, I have this, you sparked something in me. Now, this is something that a matter of fact, I think I want to spend a little more time and just really delve into this. And I know it's happened to you. It's got to have happened to you too, Nina.
Probably, whatever it is.
I'm curious about this. I was in a restaurant one time and it literally panicked me. It nearly panicked me because I was having a conversation with somebody and all of a sudden I had the weirdest, it was so weird. My heart literally started pounding and I was like, and I had this deja vu moment. I was just sitting there at a restaurant. I forgot who I was with. I was with somebody and I was sitting there eating. And all of a sudden I had this deja vu moment. And I had been there before. And I looked around and my friend noticed that I had this look on my face all of a sudden. And the crazy thing was I knew what this person was going to say before they said it, because it happened in this deja vu moment, because someone said something like, that red shirt over there, that guy with the red shirt on. It was something very out of communication. Didn't make any sense. But I knew what that person was going to say, and they said it. That made the deja vu even worse because all of a sudden I said, God, it's like I felt like I've been here before. And I was sitting there and I was thinking about this and I had this look on my face. My friend asked me, what's wrong? And I just said, I was just thinking about something. And when I said I was thinking about something, I knew what they said and they said it right behind. I nearly passed out because it made that deja vu moment so weird. Yeah. I was like, and they were like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, something weird just happened. And they was like, what do you mean? And then I started explaining it. That jacked up my whole day. And I was like, why did I have a feeling like I was right here, right? I had been here before and I knew what this person was going to say, because I was thinking like, that's a strange thing to say. And it was something weird that was off in the background. And they commented about something. And I said, so I think they need to put in some more studies about deja vu stuff, because I think that I was like, have you ever had that? Have you ever had a deja vu moment?
Yes, actually, I have. It still gives me chills when I think about it.
See?
I was at home.
Okay.
And I was putting on my shoes. I was by myself. I was putting on my shoes. And while I'm putting on my shoes, I have this kind of flash in my mind, like it's, like I can see it, like it's a movie. Okay.
Right.
And I can see my Sunday school teacher. I was in a ladies' Sunday school class. Okay. And I see my Sunday school teacher. We're at church. She's standing in front of me. And she asked me to take over teaching the class.
Right.
And it just went just like that, and I thought, what? Nina, where did that thought come from? I
Right.
mean, for one thing, she's been teaching the class for the last 12 years,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody loves her. It's a big class, and we all think she's great, and there's
Mm-hmm.
no need for
Right.
anybody else to take over this class. And why would she ask you? You
Yeah.
know, why would you even think that she would ask you? And I was telling myself, wow, are you conceited that you
Mm-hmm.
think that she would even ask you to teach this class? So
Right.
anyway, that was like a Thursday. Sunday morning, I get to church. I'm
Mm-hmm.
standing in the exact spot where I had that little vision.
Right.
I'm not just standing there waiting for something to happen. I was coming up the aisle, but I got to that spot and she literally approached me. We were standing right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what she asked me, if I would take over doing, and I was like, and I was so stunned
Right.
that I
Right.
had seen it and then it had happened, and I was like, "What is going on?" I couldn't even answer her for a minute, and
I'm
she said,
telling you.
I understand if you need time to think about it, maybe, this is a surprise to you," and I thought, "That's just it. It's not a surprise, and I don't understand it." It's the
Right.
craziest.
It's almost a comforting feeling that after you calm down after a deja vu moment. That's one thing. Another thing that I had, I've it's strange. I mean, and I hadn't had any really good ones lately, but when I was younger, I used to have a lot of dreams. I used to have a lot very vivid dreams, but I still have some pretty good ones. Matter of fact, now that I'm older, I'll have a dream, but it's about something, a business concept or something, and I mean, it is spot on. I literally actually
Mhm.
put together a television show from a dream that came to me, and it hit me. I was asleep. I mean, knocked out sleep, wasn't thinking about anything, and boom, this dream started in my head, and it was about 2:45 in the morning, and I jumped out of
Mhm.
bed, ran into my office, sat down, turned the light on, grabbed a notepad, and started writing. And I was writing everything that came out of my head. By the time 6 o'clock rolled around, the whole television show was flushed out. I mean, I had the whole diagram, everything. And it's something that I'm playing. I would love to do it maybe this year if I could pull it off. And it was something that I was working on for the past year and a half. And I mean, but it was dynamic. I mean, the concept is really dynamic. But dreams are really cool.
So, you know
Uh-huh.
what the Bible says about that, Rodney?
Yes, I know. I
It
know.
says God gives to those he loves even in their sleep.
That's right. And let me tell you, I took that very, very seriously. That's why
Mhm,
I bound out of bed. I mean, I jumped out of bed. I literally
mhm.
was stumbling, sleep. I gotta write this stuff down. I gotta write this stuff down. Notepad, pen, turn the lights on. Oh, it was so bright. I went to work, and I literally went from sleep to jumping out of bed, running and writing. Okay, we got more interesting stuff. Um, in Maryland, it is illegal to be in a public park in a sleeveless shirt. So they want you to be
It
dressed kinda right,
is
right.
is that for both sexes or
Apparently
just
so. Apparently so. In
so no
Massachusetts,
tank tops?
yeah, no tank tops apparently. In Massachusetts, it is illegal to eat more than 3 sandwiches at a sitting. So in
Like I could.
Massachusetts, none of those big, food eating competitions in,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
you
So
see?
does a hot dog count as a sandwich?
Interesting question.
I just keep
Interesting
thinking about
question.
all those hot dog eating contests you read about where, this guy ate 52 hot dogs in one sitting or something like that. I
Funny you
always
mention
wonder,
uh-huh.
how do they feel afterwards?
It
You
makes me
know?
nauseous to think about it. I don't you just oof. And it's
So
just
uncomfortable, yeah. I don't think I would enjoy the awards ceremony after that.
well, I got what worse than that. There's a guy, I forgot this guy's name, but he he's a he sounds like he has a like a German or Irish accent, and but he does kind of like a W.C. Fields kind of accent. This is crazy thing, and he eats some of the hottest peppers and things that you could imagine. He will take Carolina Reapers on a sandwich and shake some of this like zombie hot sauce on it, and he will eat this thing and it is dripping. And how he eats it, his eyes are watering and he's just moaning in pain, but he thinks but he does it. It's hilarious to watch this guy. Sometimes I'll just watch some of his videos. I'll watch 2 or 3 of them and I'll go, wow. But they say they call it Scoville. I guess that's how hot a pepper is. That's the heat level. And they say he will eat some of the hottest things, and he'll put like 3 or 4 he'll make a sandwich out of Carolina Reapers, and he'll just put hot sauce on it and all of this stuff, and it is so hot, and he'll just eat it, and then he's in wincing and pain as he's talking, and I was like, ugh, I couldn't imagine.
You know that feeling you get when you bite into a lemon?
Right.
You know, that
Yeah.
I don't even know how to describe it, but you just kinda I'm doing that right now, just listening to you describe
Do
this
you
fella.
do you know what makes me that will make me literally jump up from a table? I had a friend of mine who, and oh God, it makes me, woo, God, I can't even stand even talking about it. He used to take a fork and he would eat, and he would hit his teeth with a fork.
Oh.
I told myself, hey man, could you please stop doing that? And you know how some people say yeah, nails on a chalkboard?
Yes.
Nails on a chalkboard doesn't bother me. People eating and hitting their teeth with a fork, it sends electric shocks through my head. I'm telling you, it will literally make me get up from a table. I don't care if I was sitting there with the president. If that joker is sitting there and eating and he's scraping his teeth with his fork, man, my teeth are tingling right now, just in my tongue, just thinking about it. I just I can't.
think we all have those little things that just kind of, and sometimes you don't know what they are until they're happening.
Yeah, you have to be careful. What other fun stuff do we have? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I gotta tell you about this because when you brought this up before about the deja vu and so forth, it reminded me of a podcast series that I watched recently. My daughter sent me episode 9 of this podcast series, and it was called The Telepathy Tapes. And my first thought when I saw it was, that kind of sounds new agey. And, you know, I've read about people doing experiments with telepathy, and then they get all excited because, oh, somebody was correct, you know, when we sent these telepathic messages to them. They got them correctly 19% of the time. You know, that is statistically important. It's beyond chance. And I thought, yeah, but it's not reliable. You know, what can you do with it? You know, it's just not reliable. So anyway, this is what was so intriguing to me. Once she sent me that episode, I had to go back and watch the rest because it was talking about how that there are parents all over the United States and even all over the world who have autistic children.
Right.
And these parents became aware that their children who were nonverbal could not speak.
Right.
Okay. But eventually, when their kids were like maybe teenagers or whatever, they were given devices where they could type out something, because that only takes large motor movements, not small ones.
Right.
And so they could type out what they were thinking. Now, the parents had been taught and told, oh, there's really nobody in there, because since they can't speak, they can't, you know, control their bodies. They're never going to be able to learn, you know, you're never going to have a relationship with them.
Wrong.
And this is what these parents thought. And then, but, you know, they were still getting services for their kids, you know. And so then somebody that they were like a speech pathologist or whatever would give them a device and help them learn to type. And then as soon as the kids were able to type, they type out to their parents, "I can read your thoughts. I know what you're thinking." And the parents were like,
Wow.
"Uh-uh, no." And they put them to the test and they found out that these kids
Wow.
were right 100% of the time.
Wow.
So
Wow.
then in this podcast series, they set up these series of tests with
Mhm.
a psychologist who was studying this sort of thing.
Mhm.
And these kids were literally correct 100% of the time.
Right.
And this was not just a few. Then they started asking the kids, "Well, how are you able to do this?" And they said, some of them were like, "Well, I can see it. I see it in
Mhm.
my head. Whatever my mom sees, I see in my head too."
Wow.
And they said, "Well, can you do it with your dad?" One kid couldn't do it with his dad, but another kid could do it with anyone in the room. They could read anybody's mind in the
You
room.
know, I have to
So,
tell you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, and I was just gonna tell you, they also found out that these kids were able to communicate with other kids
Right.
in other zip codes that kids they'd never met before because those kids were autistic and nonverbal too, and they had the same ability. And
Mhm.
somehow they were able to connect with each other, and every day they would visit each other through this means
That is
of
really,
doing this.
really, really amazing. I have to tell you, I was a big brother to an autistic young man named Mark Lerag. God bless him. He wonderful young man. I think he was in his late 30s when he passed away. Sadly, his father had pancreatic cancer and passed away. And I knew the family, and they had actually asked me to come live with them because the father had passed away, and a few years later, the mother had passed away. So the auntie stepped in and took the family and became like the matriarch of the family. And
Mhm.
the family actually asked me to live with them to kind of be a big brother and to take care of Mark, because Mark would be kind of rambunctious sometimes because the father was one like, "Hey, Mark, cut it out." And he would listen to his dad. So
Mhm.
they wanted me just because they felt that I'd be close to him. It turns out Mark was like my little brother. And so he was one of the most intelligent people. He loved Star Wars. And let me tell you something.
Mhm.
I literally could bet money on him because if I had a buddy of mine came by, a buddy of mine named Marvin. I said, "Hey, Marvin," asked him, go pound for pound with him on Star Wars trivia. And
Mhm.
I say, "Hey, Mark, ask Marvin about some Star Wars stuff." And let me tell you something. He could go for an hour talking about Star Wars. He knew the trilogy, he knew the song. He would literally watch the film credits, and he knew the director, the lighting, tech. He knew so much.
Wow.
And I was like, it was almost like I could have put him on a game show. I'm serious. But the one thing, the reason why I'm bringing this up, you brought up some. I was a special guest at Special Olympics. I was one of the
Mhm.
celebrity guests, and we gave out all the gold medals. If you ever get an opportunity, people, I really mean this. Please go and support the Special Olympics. Go and volunteer. If you've ever been around people with disabilities and things like that, you got to go and be a part of the world. I was at the World Games of Special Olympics. And let me tell you something. I was there. Arnold Schwarzenegger was there that year. All these huge celebrities were there. And it's just an honor to be there. But the crazy thing is to watch the competitions. Man, we were they said, "Hey, Rodney, we need you to go over to aquatics and give out awards." I said, "Okay, I'm on my way." So I'm over in aquatics, right? That's the swimming. So you think people with autism or something like that, I'm like, I'm thinking, wow, how the world, and I'm not the best swimmer in the world myself, but I was thinking, like, how in the world is this going to happen? Because I
Mhm.
that was one competition I hadn't watched. Man, the one thing about a person with a disability, they don't realize certain things that just aren't, that aren't supposed to be. They just don't, or maybe they do.
Mm-hmm.
Man, there was this guy at the swimming, and I was watching this thing. They were like, okay, on your mark, get set, go. This guy jumped in the water. It was like he didn't even think, or he thought he was a fish. And I was like, oh Lord, where did this guy go? And he was underwater. He swam so fast to the other end. I was like, was that a real Olympic time? It was the most incredible thing. If you want to see something, and out here in California, I forgot the gentleman's name, but he does the Paralympic. Now, these are adults who have a disability. They might be missing an arm and a leg. There's a guy who is a NASCAR. No, he's an IndyCar driver with one leg. There's one, and he's driving a multi-million-dollar race team car, and he has one leg. So people with disabilities, don't underestimate the guy, that young man that jumped in the water. And then there was another young man that jumped, and he didn't go under, but he was on top of the water. And he literally, when he jumped in the water, he was like a buzzsaw, like a powerboat. He just went, and he was just, and I was like, wow, I would not put myself up against some there. And one last thing. So they said, Rodney, we need you to go to the karate competition. I did not. I said, okay. So I go over to hand out gold medals in the karate competition, man. And I was thinking like, ooh, boy, I just kind of felt kind of funny to watch the karate competition at Special Olympics. But these young men and women were trained. And I said, now this is going to be interesting to see this. Man, this kid walked out there, and when they said, okay, and go, that kid grabbed that guy and he karate slammed him on the mat, and it sounded like a shotgun blast. It literally said, "Bow!" And I was like, wow. And I said, wow, it slipped out, and people turned around, and I thought to myself, I was like, oops, I didn't think I meant to say wow. But I said, I would not wrestle that young man, because I was like, oh my, but it was like he didn't know his own strength. And I was like, whew.
I was going to say he probably knocked the wind out of his opponent for one thing, which would put him at a disadvantage. But that element of surprise to do that so quickly.
He did it so fast. The match was over in literally like 2 seconds. As soon as they started, he grabbed that guy. He grabbed him by the arm, and he flipped him so hard on that. And it was a karate competition. He threw him, and he held his arm, and it was like, blow, just like that. And I was like, wow. I was like, oops. And then the kids started crying, and I was like, oh no. I was like, I shouldn't have said it. People, and this one guy stood next to me. His face turned red because he was, I guess, one of the officials. He just looked at me, and he just turned red, because I guess everybody thought the same thing, but mine slipped out. And I said, wow. But needless to say, I love Special Olympics. Make sure everybody you support incredible organizations like Special Olympics, Muscular Dystrophy Association, the Paralympics, incredible competitions. They the Paralympics are like they have wheelchair races, and these guys are like bodybuilders. You should see their arms and the girls. I mean, huge, just ripped. They may be paralyzed from the waist down. And they had a wheelchair race, and the wheels are actually cambered in. Most wheelchairs have.
Yes.
These guys' wheels are leaning at an angle like this. They say the wheelchairs could be upwards of $10,000. And so, but those guys raced around this track, and they would go so fast with their arms, and they wore gloves. And when those guys took off, you were like, wow, it really is an Olympic level competition. So if you ever get a chance to take in a Paralympics, go see it. Most incredible thing you'll ever see.
Wow.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. Wow.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
didn't mean to, I wasn't trying to be funny there. It just
No,
came out.
exactly.
Sorry.
And
And
coronavirus
listen,
as well. Wow.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
And if you're interested in the podcast, I mentioned it is called The Telepathy Tapes. Honest, you should check it out. It is, what I told you is just the tip of the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg. So
Yeah.
many of these kids were also found once they could communicate.
Mhm.
Their families and their teachers discovered that they knew things they had no way of knowing. Now, remember, most of them had not gotten any kind of formal education.
Yep.
Most of their families thought, well, they don't even know their letters, they don't know how
Right.
to read. It turns out there was one kid who was he was in a Spanish speaking household. Okay,
Mhm.
his family only spoke Spanish, but what they discovered was that he already knew Arabic and Russian.
I really believe people with disabilities are literally, I know for a fact that they are blessed by God. They really are, because I've been around people with disabilities and they have like superpowers.
Mhm.
Mark was one
Yes,
of them.
yes.
I'm telling you, Mark,
That was exactly what I was thinking as I was reading this. I'm like,
I'm
it's
telling you,
like, oh my goodness, it's all there and it's all happening in their minds and so forth, and we don't even know it. Those of us who think and sometimes look at them and think, oh, they don't get to participate in life doing
no,
this, but no, they're participating in things that we're not partaking of. And
right.
all of the kids, I found this extremely interesting. The researchers who are talking to these kids,
Uh-huh.
they're wanting to be very scientific. So they're
Right.
asking the kids, okay, how are you connecting with each other? And how are you finding out these things? How are you learning? And the kids were saying, well, it's, you know, we're connected through God. The kids are calling him God.
Wow.
And the researchers are saying, okay, so like a consciousness, they want to call it
Right.
consciousness. And the kids are saying, well, yes, a consciousness, a knowing, something that knows,
Yeah,
but that's God.
that's right.
And they said, and what we've learned is the most important thing is love. God is love.
Right.
So this keeps coming out in this series, and they've only had the first season. They're going to be doing a second season soon. I can't wait to see what comes out with that.
I hope
But
I really hope that they dig into that, because remember I told you I was like the big brother to Mark. Mark actually worked with a group of autistic young men and girls, and it was incredible the work that they did. There was a place in Glendale, California, where they all worked, and but there was one guy who was a friend of Mark's, and Mark passed away, as I said, God bless him. But his friend Eddie, he still calls me till this day. And he will just call me and he said, "Hey, brother, I just want to let you know I love you." And I said, "Oh, man, thank you, Eddie." I mean, I could be in the middle of the worst day. All of a sudden, my phone will ring and it's Eddie. And he says, "Hey, man, how are you?" I'm like, "Hey, Eddie, what's happening?" And I said, "Eddie, I'm right in the middle of something." And he's like, "No problem, man. Hey, I just want to let you know I love you." And I said, I was like, one day I was having a really bad day, and Eddie called me out of the blue and just said, "Man, I just want you to know I'm thinking about you, man. And I sure miss you. And we ought to hang out sometime." And because I used to go to the events, I would take Mark. I was a chaperone, so I would take him to they would go bowling and do all these different fun things.
mhm.
And I actually was a chaperone. I took actually like a whole carload of these guys, and we all went to Hollywood, and they all wanted to go on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I might have to find some of these pictures. Yeah, I think I will. I have to dig through and see some of these pictures. And
I'd love to see.
what a fun time, because those guys were just hilarious. They were, and together they played off of each other. That very thing that you're talking about, they knew each other, and they knew they were like buddies. They were like, "Hey man, how you doing? Oh man, I hadn't seen you in so long." And I just stood there and I analyzed that and I said, "That's beautiful," And the one thing that I did notice, and I don't, and people with autism are some of the happiest people in the world. They're not. You might have a problem with them. They don't have no problem. They are the happiest people because they're in their own element, and it's just a beautiful thing. I think it's awesome,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And I love hearing you say it. And I have to think, Rodney, I mean, you mentioned he would call you a lot of times you were having a terrible day.
Right.
I kind of wonder if he called you because you were having a terrible day and God let him know you needed to hear from him.
I tell you, that guy, Eddie, I have to admit, and shout out to Eddie, because he really, he calls me. I mean, I was busy and I was having a real terrible day for some reason. A bunch of weird stuff was going on. And I was like, man, what else can go wrong? Bring phone rings. It's Eddie. I was like, thank you, Lord, for Eddie, for calling me, but
yeah.
Great thing.
Well, y'all, we've run out of time. I had one more story I wanted to bring to you, and I'm just going to mention the headline.
Do it.
The president has directed that the U.S. Mint stop minting pennies.
Yeah, you bet.
No pennies. Yeah, because pennies actually cost the government 2 cents to make every penny, but the penny's only worth 1 cent.
Wow.
So it's not cost effective. So they're cutting costs and they're not going to make pennies anymore. So y'all, that makes all the pennies you do have right now
could be worth something.
Rarer by the month. Yeah, and could be worth something. So hold on to those pennies.
Awesome. And for you people, I'll give one more trivia thing. In Minnesota, it is illegal to tease skunks. So do not do that. You do not want to upset Pepe Le Pew. And Mississippi, any dog being walked must wear a diaper. There you go. That's it for me.
Oh, wow.
On the books.
Okay. I want to see a picture of that happening.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
thanks for joining us for all the fun today, everyone.
Yeah.
And we'll see you again next week. Y'all be of good courage because God is with us and we aren't alone. Bye, everybody.
Take care. God bless. Have a great week. Bye-bye.